Well, you know, today I didn't have to use my AK.
Rockin' new for my team, the numero uno. When I say we heavy in the game, I'm talking about the sumo. You ain't hard, you live in a house of cards, that's just uno. When it all falls, you looking for lawyers in the loophole. Attend to your two toes, resist, this is futile. Presenting the new show, nigga, this ain't football. Wolf of Wall Street about my business and my rubles. I'm in the trenches swinging for the fences, all with Pujols.
Live at 225 Trenches Radio. We are in the building again. We are here at Lifehurst Studios in downtown Akron, the new home for the podcast. We got a super special guest again in the building today, man. He is running for Ward 1. He's been out here in the community for a long time, a fourth generation Akronite. And generally a good person to speak to, man, from what I hear. Right.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So we're going to get right into it, man. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, fourth generation Akronite. So I come from a plumbing and heating family. I don't know if you've seen the Wilson plumbing and heating trucks around town at all. It's a third generation plumbing and heating family.
Oh, yeah.
My family were tire workers way back when, cooks as well. Right. So, I live in the West Hill neighborhood, which is basically Crosby and Maple Street.
Right.
I live right before the Crosby Street and Maple curve. Okay. And I'm a community organizer. I'm very passionate about the environment, about people being involved in decision making at City Hall, right. And have been very vocal in that space. I've been going to city council meetings for about 5 years now. Yeah. And now I'm running for Akron City Council Ward 1 to bring more neighbors to the table and to advocate for the important issues of today.
Oh, yeah, man. That's great. So what originally got you into running in the first place? I mean, you said that you were doing a lot of city council meetings 5 years, man. That's got to be stressful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that what got you there? Like just seeing what's going on in the city council?
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, before I moved, I grew up in Akron, but I moved away for a number of years for college down in Kentucky. And then I came back in 2019. So I've been going to city council meetings wherever I've lived for about 8 to 9 years now.
Okay.
But when I came back to Akron and started going to meetings, I was like, oh man, we need to be working on a couple things here.
Right.
There's a lot of gaps. Not enough people are in the decision-making process. A lot of neighbors are getting cut out at City Hall. Mm-hmm. And that's just really infuriated me. In 2021 is when I really started to go, okay, I've been sitting through a couple years of city council meetings now. Maybe I can be a little bit more in participation with this. So started with organizing with neighbors around environmental issues, specifically around mineral rights leasing and fracking near one of Akron's reservoirs where we get our fresh water. The issue of drilling for oil and gas near a fresh water source for our cities, it's crazy. So that got me really pumped up, and through the years, seeing a lot of people cycle in and out of the ward seats and in my seat, just got me really excited about maybe running myself and also helping other people to run as well.
Okay, cool, man. So for those who don't know, could you explain what fracking is and why is it both maybe important, I guess, and detrimental to our water sources and our environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So mineral rights leasing is the city leasing a private company to be able to come in to public land or private land and frack. Basically, drill down as deep as they can to see if they can hit oil and gas to be able to pump out and sell. But this extractive process is really dangerous. It can cause small earthquakes like we've seen in southern Ohio. Also, the runoff of things coming out of the well and the process in general setting it up and also capping can also be very dangerous. Overall, just not something that you want near one of our freshwater reservoirs. But I think overall, I'm an advocate for the environment because this is the place that we live, and we all deserve to live in a safe and healthy environment. We all deserve to have fresh water and trees around us and fresh air.
Yeah, man, that is very important. And so it's like slurry water, right? Things of that sort that like runs off, gets and contaminates the ground, gets back into our drinking water, ultimately causes more issues than I think is worth having. I'm not all the way super familiar with what goes on, but I do notice that you'll notice like throughout neighborhoods, especially in like a lot of the lower end communities, you'll see fracking going on without any issues. Like they'll just be out there with no problem. Do you think that there in Ward 1, is there anything like that going on in your community, in your area?
Yeah, I know specifically, I've studied a bit of the city's fracking efforts and the city's mineral rights leasing. I know, the edge of Ward 1 and the border of Ward 1 is a national park, right? And right now on the state and the federal level and on a local level, we're having conversations about whether it's appropriate to extract oil and gas on, a preserved natural green space and national park. So this is an issue that I think a lot of neighbors are pretty invested in. They were pretty pissed off when this came up for city council in 2021. Yeah, it's got a lot of people out to City Hall, and I think it's a continually to be an important issue and something that we need city councilors to keep an eye on.
Cool, yeah. Speaking of city council again and city hall and everything, you said that you left and you went to college for a while and then you came back here. But while you were down in Kentucky, you said that you were also doing meetings and going there too, right? What's the difference or similarities, or is there anything that you saw there that when you got back home, you were like, man, we need that, or vice versa?
Yeah, I started going because down in Kentucky, they don't have the same civil rights protections for LGBTQ plus folks. Wow. So, me just coming out of the closet in college, realizing that I could be outed and kicked out of my apartment and kicked out of my job because, I identified a certain way or I love who I love, right. Or presented a particular way. So, that really got me pumped up and interested in going to local meetings. So started going and seeing, local elected officials sometimes are really, really disconnected.
Right.
And especially in a smaller town, I was in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Bowling Green,
Kentucky. Yeah. So 5 people, sat on the commission. One of them is the mayor. And just seeing, the amount, hundreds and hundreds of people show up in support of this issue. Right. If they were to put it on the ballot, it would pass.
Oh, yeah.
But city council, over and over again, block it. And this was a real issue. Like my friends
most definitely
were fired because they were outed to their, and kicked out of their apartment. This is a quality of life issue,
most definitely.
People deserve to feel safe and, be able to live and work. But I think one interesting thing that I did see that I respected about the space was that you could come up even throughout the meeting and put your name on the list before the end of the meeting to give a public comment at the meeting.
Okay.
So they later ended up walking that back and restricting it because more people were using it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But yeah, I think that was, having an open and robust way for citizens to just come in and go, hey, I have some concerns. I'd like to share them with you. So I think that's important.
Was that was that similar? Well, we know like there's a limit. We have like a 2-minute limit or something like
3
that?
minutes.
3 minutes. Mm-hmm. 3 minutes. And in order to get your name on the list, you have to sign up the day before, right? Or
day of by 4 p.m. sharp.
Yeah. And then after that, it's the cutoff. And they still only allow so many people, right?
Yeah.
Even if the list it doesn't matter if there's 1 million people on that list.
Yeah.
Probably only 20 or 30 people are going to get up.
10 or less. So they just put restrictions in 2022, or 2023, and they did this because so many people were showing up because many people were really pissed off about the killing of Jayland Walker and a lot of environmental issues and lots of housing issues that were happening in 2022 and 2023. People were activated. People were paying attention.
Right. Yeah.
And one thing that threatens power is people paying attention. And so they immediately restricted our public comment section. Only 10 people can speak per meeting, and you can only speak once every 30 days.
Oh, wow.
And this is something that I think we need to walk back. We need to make sure that we have much more opportunity for residents to be able to speak at these city council meetings.
That's crazy. So what's the purpose behind the once every 30 days?
That's a great question. I think it's just a additive restrictive measure.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of overkill. The main excuse for all of these restrictions was that they were eating up council's effective time. And it's like, y'all weren't doing your jobs to begin with.
I mean, you're getting paid still, right?
Yeah, you're still getting paid. You're getting paid to sit through a meeting. And these meetings right now, because of these restrictions, are only about 20, 25 minutes. They used to be...
And they live stream them, so it goes fast, right?
Yeah.
The most of the council meeting at the beginning is just normal business as usual, right? And then they open up the floor for what you said, 20, 30 minutes?
Yep, that's how it was. But now they also changed the meeting time to 6:30 and put the public comment at the beginning. So they mixed up a lot of things just to restrict people.
Yeah, I see. And that will probably cause a lot of confusion. Yeah, that is crazy. I had no clue about that. I heard you speaking about your personal life or whatever, and you said going down there that you had issues coming out. Well, everybody did, right? Getting fired, getting things, losing jobs, losing housing, stuff like that. When you talk about here in Akron, Ohio, and the issues that we have facing the LGBTQ plus community, what challenges do you see, and what change do you think you can affect by running?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that question. I think, me not being out is actually one of the reasons why I left Akron when I was 18. I grew up in a pretty conservative Catholic environment that was not friendly.
Right.
Really, really not friendly. But coming back and rebuilding those relationships and being like, hey, like, this is just me. Right. This is my life. I'm living a beautiful life. I'd like you to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm happy, right? Yeah,
I'm happy.
Healthy,
yeah, exactly. I think, in Akron, we're really, really lucky to have some legal protections in place. We have protections for gender identity and sexual orientation. And we also have an enforcement body, the Akron Civil Rights Commission, which I have served on as well, to enforce those laws, to make sure that people feel safe in employment and public accommodations when they're out in public and at their job. So we're really lucky to have some of these protections and to have a really good enforcement mechanism that actually has a track record of holding people accountable. But because I'm on the microphone and I have a minute, I love to share a little bit about like queer people history here in the city as well. The inner belt is obviously a major problem of today. What is not talked about and just started being unraveling is that right beside a lot of the black institutions and jazz clubs and bars and there was a lot of queer spaces as well. Right. So those spaces were absolutely torn apart just as well. And we lost a lot of history. That community lost a lot of history.
Most definitely.
And we see traditionally a history of police violence towards queer people as well, and an over restriction of laws. People getting kicked out of their homes, people getting their homes being raided, right? Their bars and public spaces being raided, people being arrested because of their HIV status or AIDS status. So I think it's really important that we keep on pulse with these issues, because these are also issues that are coming right back up. We hear a lot of stuff on the national and the state news about wanting to restrict certain things, or and these are quality of life issues. These are affecting our neighbors, our people, and we have a lot of healing yet to do, but we have a whole hell of a lot of fighting left to do as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Like you were saying, with the national news and everything that's going on in the world. With all of these new changes and policies and restrictions that's going on in the world, do you fear that will trickle down into society here in Akron?
Yeah, I think we're already seeing it too. I know a lot of people in my circles are just afraid, of, will there be some, and the state is starting to crack down on queer people's rights to go to the bathroom, to identify or, identify by their name that they want to be identified by. We're seeing a lot of anxiety, and I think we have to keep fighting and being vocal about like LGBTQ plus issues affect everybody, because at the end of the day, it is about who you are able to be in relationship with and how you present yourself and identify.
Yeah, in public.
And exactly. And if that's something that affects every single person. Bodily autonomy, our choice to love who we love or present the way that we want to affects every single person. And we see restrictions historically, from cross-dressing to, anti-drag laws. Right. These are historically also been attacks against other communities as well. So these foundations are something that we need to keep analyzing and fighting, and this affects us all.
Yeah. Any solutions on how we curb those problems?
I think on the local level, with this seat, we stand firm in what our community values are and identify those values. If we truly are a welcoming city, then we should act and our laws should be welcoming. If some bullshit happens on the federal level and the state level, then we need to make sure that we draw a line somewhere on the local level. Yeah. And be willing to risk certain things to be able to protect people at the end of the day. I think that's what it comes down to. Yeah, man. They attribute a lot, and I'm not saying none of this is true. This is just plain devil's advocate, but they attribute a lot of things to like mental health issues and stuff like that. Do you agree with how it's portrayed in the public eye that mental health is, I guess, neck and neck with the LGBTQ plus community? Excuse me if I butchered that. No, that's fine. I think, I'm deeply troubled by that argument. Yeah. I grew up in an environment where it wasn't safe. It wasn't a safe environment. Right. And for queer folks, I think identifying or linking mental illness with certain communities as an excuse or something just leads down a really dark road. I have a deep problem with that. I think if people who hold those values sat down with a couple queer people, right, and got to know them, they would understand that they're just in a state of trying to understand their place in the world, and like most people, like most people, I think we all go through our different identity crises, right? Yeah. And we all hope to find ourselves and feel comfortable in the bodies that we were given, right? And I think I would also question the societal norms that we all carry with us. Yeah, most definitely. Right? Yeah. So I think we're all trained and taught because of our education system, because of the laws that we have, because of the history of this country, to divide and fear one another. Right, and that difference is bad. Yeah. Instead of gorgeous and beautiful. Yeah. Right. So I would just sit with that, but that's trying. That's a trying thing. And speaking of mental health issues, they also like to attribute that to not only the Black community when things go wrong, but with the homeless, right? Yes, there probably are a lot of people who have mental health issues who ended up losing things. It's so simple to lose an ID, lose a birth certificate, get put out, be evicted, lose everything, and then have a hard time getting back past that. A mental health problem with that would definitely compound the issue. But I don't believe that everybody who's out here is struggling with mental health issues. Yeah. In your activism, I guess, you are pro helping the community when it comes to homelessness, housing, and affordability. Where do you stand on these issues? And then, as running for Ward 1, what is your outgoals, your goal to change that, or at least help change? Yeah, absolutely. I think 25% of Akronites pay more than 50% of their income in rent. Yes, right. That's a significant number. Yeah. We also have a pretty high poverty rate. And we have to understand that a a lot of us are just a couple paychecks, if not one paycheck away from being out on the street.
Emergency, anything away from being homeless.
Exactly. And I have met lots of our local folks that are out on the street, and they are you and me.
Right. Yeah.
They are you and me.
Most definitely.
One paycheck away, two paychecks away. They really are.
Yeah.
And I think generally it's a symptom of, economics and policy and a system that just does not benefit people. We are living in a time where life is not affordable.
Yes.
Things are becoming even less affordable day by day. And this is putting more and more people out on the streets. There's been a 300% uptick in the last 2 years of people out on the street.
It's crazy, man. I noticed that they'll say like filling out an application or something like that, which we have a lot of issues with that too, where like people will come in and be like, well, there's a $75 application fee per person in the household. And unfortunately, like I'll say in like the Black communities, maybe in your community as well, you'll go in, you'll fill out these applications, and they're just pretty much money grabbing, right? They're never going to give you this place, no matter if you do own or have 3 times the rent, which normally they're going to ask for on an $1,800 a month 2-bedroom or something like that, which is outrageous, right? What changes can we do? What things can we put in place to curb like being gouged housing? And then like we have all of these abandoned houses that now we tear down and then sell the land or put in land bank. But do we like restructure? Like what do we do to curb our homelessness and maybe raise the quality of life for the people who are on the verge, a paycheck away?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I'd say if anybody feels like they faced an instance and have documentation of instances of discrimination, I would definitely Google Akron Civil Rights Commission and file a complaint. You can get payment, you can get your housing back, you can get your job back if you face certain instances of discrimination. So just want to highlight that. But I think, we were talking about homelessness and the dramatic increase over the last 2 years. But in our city budget, we see that there's been the same line item amount budget towards our shelters in the last 4 years.
Which is crazy.
It's like, I think it's $350,000. That's all we're putting towards our local shelters.
Yeah.
Investing public dollars, our local dollars, into places that are actively fighting for more availability for shelter beds and for affordable housing is important. I think right now we have I think it's like 1,200 to 1,600 beds, but we are drastically short by several hundred beds, and that has a real impact on who's able to make it to an emergency shelter and stay over. Mm-hmm. On the general housing side of stuff, we have seen rent go up in a lot of areas. In my neighborhood of West Hill, we're 73% renters. Right. And we see large swaths, whole blocks in the neighborhood be bought out by out-of-state slumlords and management companies, and then just let the properties become derelict. Yeah, exactly. And that has real impact on the quality of life and neighbor connections and the
value of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we need restrictions on who is able, large corporations coming in and trying to buy up our blocks. You mentioned like vacant areas and, old houses. So I live right next to a vacant lot that's been turned into a garden. Yeah. I live 2 houses down from a house that's been, left abandoned for about a decade now. Somebody bought it up and is fixing it up, right? Some of these things are what we want to see in our neighborhoods. Some of it isn't, right? I think we need to take a neighborhood by neighborhood approach and see what do neighbors actually want in this space. Do they want a community garden? Do they want a neighbor next door? Can we get more affordable housing? But we also have to realize that when the city and also private partners come into certain neighborhoods, sometimes the market value that they are putting up rent or expecting rent to be once we put in a unit is significantly more than what the neighborhood can stabilize with. And that ends up having a long-term effect on rent prices rising and people eventually being displaced out of their own areas.
Yeah, definitely. I was reading an article online one day about renters who got together and decided to use an app that pretty much gave an average balance. This is what you as a renter should pay, right? Or this is what your tenant should pay, right? And then they collectively use this service and outsource someone else to be like, okay, this is what we need to do. And then they go in, they buy these houses, they set these rents at a price that's normally 2 times, 3 times what the market value is. And in most places, they buy these homes in bulk, right? At the end of the year, they do the one loan, one big buyout, $2 million, get you pretty much all the land and property in one neighborhood. And then they turn that around and, flip it, right? They up the price, they turn everything away, displace a lot of people and things of that sort. Is there something that we can do now to try to curb those issues?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I'm a big advocate of us knowing our neighbors across the street and across the hall.
Right.
I think knowing your neighbors is the first step to having more of a say of what happens on your block and in your building. But there are also groups, small tenant groups that are popping up around. Some of them are organizing with Freedom Block, others with housing services and legal aid. But I think forming tenant unions in buildings and in neighborhoods that are high renter populations is a way for renters and tenants to be able to take a little bit more of a say in what happens, to be able to combat rent hikes and big eviction numbers in your area. So don't be afraid to knock the door. Don't be afraid to get to know your neighbors, because more likely than not, they're probably going through the same exact thing that you are. So organizing with people, getting organized, understand your neighbors. Those are ways that we can fight these kind of things. Oh, yeah. You said that you were endorsed by the Freedom Block and several other big hitters, right? Yeah.
But besides the names and, the backing or whatever, what does that mean to you? Yeah, absolutely. So endorsed by the Freedom Block, Victory Fund, Working Families Party, and several other organizations and some other elected officials locally. And endorsements to me are kind of a working way to fulfill a promise, right? This campaign is about some local change over time and trying to be vocal about the issues that matter right now. And for those endorsements, I take those very seriously. Those are serious partnerships that when we're in office, very much intend to write some policy with these folks, get on the ground with these folks, and continue to organize. The Freedom Block specifically has been doing a lot of beautiful work in our community. But also, sometimes they just face a lot of vitriol from city councilors, unneeded vitriol, terrible hate. The Freedom Block is doing the work, and some city councilors aren't. And we need to be real about that. So I very much look forward to bringing some of that organizing power to City Hall. We need a little bit more of that at City Council. Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about Jasmine Tucker. Yes. What does accountability look like when a young person is killed during a police response? Yeah, let me be very clear about this. The city needs to fire Davon Fields. Yes. It should have happened months and months ago. It has not happened yet. We need to keep the pressure on. So I think, the administration came in hot off the heels of a police murder of Jayland Walker. And we need to push the administration to take actual steps right now, not doing a study to eventually change things in 10 years. They have the power to fire folks. They have the power to negotiate for certain things with the police union contract negotiations that are happening right now. They have the power to re-empower and better fund the police oversight board. And these are important current plays that are on the table. I think oversight looks like funding the police oversight board to do what it is supposed to do, giving them investigatory powers and powers to fire if we need to. It looks like a police union contract that doesn't allow for arbitration, which is a legal way for folks to get fired and then brought back onto the police force. It looks like more stringent
oversight and more stringent accountability measures when it comes to complaints and misconduct.
Yeah, man, that all sounds great to me. How would you reimagine safety through housing, mental health, and community investment?
Yeah, I think I like that. I think so much we get wrapped up like public safety is policing. Policing is public safety. But I like to back that up and separate the two. Right. Because also policing for a lot of times is also not public safety. Yes. All right. So I would say, public safety to me is making sure that neighbors feel connected with their neighborhood, with their block. It means that people have a roof over their heads, can put food on the table, and feel at home in the place that they're living, right? Akron should feel good to live in. Yeah. I think can we reestablish that as a goal? Like this place should be a good place to live. People should enjoy being here. But a part of that is the real issues of crime and of violence and who meets those calls and how that is dealt with. And I think a lot of it stems from people not feeling connected, people not having food, people not having affordable housing and a roof over their head. Yeah. And I think we can solve some of these bigger issues by just providing more for people and, going and accompanying people through their life. And I think this role is one way to do that. Oh, yeah, I agree. I agree most definitely. Running for any public office, I feel like more people should just, even if you're not, when we talk about the movement or activism or doing things in the world, everybody's not going to be outside marching. Mm-hmm. Some people need to make calls. Mm-hmm. There's some people who can draft letters and send emails way better than other people. Mm-hmm. There's people pretty much for every facet in the movement, right? So again, we need people like you to be out here forefront running and still understand our values, right? Our values, what we hold dear in our communities and stuff. So first of all, I thank you for that. Going back to the Jasmine Tucker case, in the wake of his death, how should Akron improve with the response to youth crises, or just in general when it comes to things with the youth in our community? Yeah, absolutely. So, when we think about specifically Jasmine's death, one of the first articles and one of the first press releases that was released by the police department labeled him a man. Yes. A 16-year-old is a teenager or a boy. Yeah, he's a boy. Yeah. And I think that is just a simple example of how we dehumanize people, or we mark up a certain narrative to spin off and create misinformation. Yeah, right. From that point on, it's hard to dial back. Yeah, it is. It is, right? But the fact of the matter is that a kid was killed by the cops, and just about nothing has happened since. And I think one thing that I'm zeroed in on is making sure that what is said on the microphone and at city council meetings is accurate, is factual, because we heard a lot of misinformation, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of racist shit said by people elected to leadership. Yes. On the public microphone, on the public record, in front of people, in front of the newspapers, we need to be really real about some of these people should not be holding office. Yeah. Some of these people are not getting the right information. And so I think holding to those people to account in the meeting real time is important, but also working towards the longer change policy matters. But yeah, I think, kids should be able to grow up and walk around their neighborhood and not get shot by an officer of the law just for walking around their neighborhood. Crazy. So. Yeah. So, excuse me, the Jalen Walker case, it shook Akron, right? And many people still feel that justice haven't been served. Yeah. We heard some of your reaction, but originally when you first heard what happened, what was your initial reaction to the case? And then what steps can we take to rebuild some type of confidence in the people that we pay to protect and serve us? I was really pissed off. Jalen was the same age as I was at that time.
Yeah.
And, I'm white, so I carry a different identity, and, I have different kinds of interactions with police officers.
Right.
But I think that moment, like you said, really shook Akron. I think a lot of Akronites, particularly a lot of white Akronites, walk around with the idea that it is happening somewhere else, that police violence happens in other neighborhoods or other places. Here. And no, it happens here, and it has been happening here.
Yes.
Since the first day of Akron. Yeah. And I think it woke up a lot of people, which is great. A lot of people got out. A lot of people started getting involved in the process, and this later started to organize more in their neighborhoods and with block groups and with community organizing groups. I think that's the power that we need to build eventually, to eventually replace some of these systems. But I think I forgot the last part of your question.
Oh yeah, what steps can we take to rebuild trust between us and the community, the people that we pay to protect?
Yeah, I think some of it's on us. I think the part that is on us is reconnecting ourselves with our neighborhoods, reconnecting ourselves with what is going on in our city, and being active and present, and reading the news, going out to community events, being vocal when we can be. I think that's what's on us. Right. But I think the onus, the real responsibility, lies on the system and the people who are elected and running and fundraising to be in these positions. They need to take action when they have the power to do so. And we have a mayor who has the power to fire, to hold to account, to divert funds, to do a lot of different things, but that's not happening. We have a city council that at the end of the day, their job is to talk and to allocate money. And, sometimes both of those things are not happening.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
definitely. A lot of times I think that's not going on. I did see that they offered a payout, I believe, for one of the police captains here, a crazy amount of money, right? Yeah. Why don't we go after their pensions and things of that sort when stuff like this happen in our communities?
So a lot of this, and I'm not a legal expert, but I have read our police union contract. But a lot of this comes down to what is our contract with the police union, between the city and the union that's representing our police officers, right? So that is written in there. Certain protections from firing, or certain protections from being let go, and retirement and benefits and all that is written in there. And that's a binding agreement that if the city breaks, we're in pretty deep trouble, right? Okay. So, but that is in negotiations every 2 to 3 years, and that's in negotiations right now. So those accountability measures can be baked into the process, but often are watered down or weakened in the process.
Understand? Yeah. Some people and residents, we all see delays when it comes to police use of force cases. What would you do to push long-term transparency? I know, we got the police cams that we normally don't get until a week or two afterwards, and things of that sort. But what things would you do to help with that transparency? Yeah,
absolutely. So, the body cam footage and dash cam footage by law now in Akron has to be released within 7 days. There's no accountability measure other than being sued for that law, but the city has done that, so far since its institution in 2020 or 2021 when that was brought into law. But we also have a police oversight board, and that's 9 citizens appointed by the mayor and council to review cases of misconduct or complaints brought in from citizens or use of force cases. But these things happen over a long stretch of time, and some of the use of force cases end up going to, if they're killings particularly, they end up going to the state, the BCI, the Bureau of Criminal Investigations,
which has been doing a terrible job on our behest. But
yeah, absolutely, it's just another wrench in the system of accountability. It is every point in the process of investigating misuse or misconduct and complaints favors the side of the officer instead of the people being brutalized. So and we have to be real about that. And I think the city is always, during these situations, always asking for more patience, more time. But it's even while this investigation is happening, you can still fire the cop.
Yeah.
You can still talk about how bad this was.
Yeah, you do.
What policies are you passing in the meantime to make sure this never happens again?
And then paying them to, be off or whatever that whole time.
Yeah, paid leave is crazy. A year more paid leave is insane.
Yeah, man. I would think like that would be one of the very first things, right? I mean, if you're trying to curb some things, if you take the payment away, that's almost like a reward, right? I mean, I get a paid vacation, especially around our holiday seasons, right? We'll have Christmas and, unfortunately, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but in my opinion, it feels like a lot of this stuff happened around like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, the holidays where like you want to be with family out doing something. And instead you're out policing. And then before you know it, something happens, someone get killed. And then we have to go on through everything. When it comes to both Jasmine Tucker and Jalen Walker, how would you go about making sure that their names are not just a hashtag?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it's about continuing to show up and learn and really to study the systems that allow it to happen. Right? I think we've seen a number of police shootings and killings between Jalen and now.
Yes.
Mike Jones, Tavion, right? We are seeing a number of people shot and killed, kids too, by our police force. And too often, and it's the same city councilors who have been in office for decades are still on the microphone saying, I'm not sure what to do here. How do you not know what to do here? Right?
Yeah.
Call it out. Start to do some stuff. Get involved in your community. Start to study the problem. I have read through the police policies. There are some glaring things for me as just a citizen who's running for the seat that I think we should change. Stop watering down the police oversight board's rules. For one, if you really care, and a lot of them, I hope they would care more. There's some things that you can do with this seat. I think not enough advocacy is happening. Not enough sitting down, doing research, sitting with the community, and getting a move on some of these things is not enough happening. So
that is definitely the truth. Excuse me. I read online that you work in international PR and local restaurant. Are you you still work in a local restaurant now?
I do.
You do? Yeah. Okay. So that is really unique, right? How does that influence your view on politics?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I work 2 jobs to make rent, right? And that's real, right? Yeah, I think most people in Akron probably work 2 jobs to make rent. So I love my job. I love my job serving. I love my job in international public relations. I love these jobs. They keep me grounded. They feed different parts of my soul, right? But I think a core red line through it all is that I just love people and I love caring for people and making sure things happen, right? At my PR job, I'm writing, I'm listening to clients, I'm making sure things are delivered on time. Same thing with my restaurant jobs. I'm listening to people, I'm making sure things are accurate and delivering food and a great experience for people who come into the space, right? I think that's a lot of what city council can do for people. City council is listening to people, making sure that people feel heard, and then delivering, making sure people have a good experience. City councilors are often the first place people go to when they have a problem. It might not be within the city's, power to solve, but
that's more than likely where they're going to come to start to take the stance.
We're supposed to be local. We're supposed to be accompanying our neighbors through their lived experience here and be with people, through things and point them in the right direction and try to work through tough problems when they can. And that's what I do at both my jobs.
Oh, yeah. So working in those jobs, especially as a restaurant, in the restaurant business or industry, have you ever had a moment where it was like, oh, man, this is why I need to run?
Oh, man. I think... And some city councilors come in,
right?
And I serve them.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh man, when's the last time you worked a service industry job? A lot of them haven't, and that's real. I think most of them are landowners and property owners. Some of them are
long time owners of land.
and some of them have very wonderful economic situations. A lot of them are normal everyday people though, and I think just for me, I would like to see better representation of just everyday Akronites with normal economic situations in positions of leadership, people who are struggling in positions of leadership, so that we can start to actually tackle some of these issues.
Yeah, it seemed like it would make more sense that way, right? I mean, like, you want the person who's hungry to get up and make change in their community because it's affecting them too, right? Yeah. Not the person who, and let's not make this a diss on being okay in life, right? Yeah. It's okay to have things and want and attain goals and get there. But I feel like you would want to put more people who on a local end, on a smaller level, has more invested in their community.
Yes.
Versus someone who's comfortable in their community and they're not really looking at the options or the issues the same way.
Because people walk into that space and, these are the people who are every single Monday at 6:30 p.m. voting yes or no on money, on how our dollars are being spent, and maybe how our neighborhoods are being zoned, or whether there's a luxury housing development coming in your backyard or right next door, right? So these are real things, and a lot of people walking into these spaces might not understand the context of the actual people living in some areas around Akron. Yeah. And so we need to bring that beautiful, messy, different walks of life into that space too, so that we can actually have the conversations that we need to be having. Yeah. Instead of, our priority should be on quality of life issues, making sure people are safe, have housing, have food on their table.
Right, because that's how you grow a community. I've seen online, right, that I believe we are like one of the best retirement states in the world, or cities in the world. Yeah. Yeah.
It would be nice to retire. I would love to retire.
Right. But you have to first get there, right? Yeah. So how does that work for us? Like, we have a bunch of colleges, hospitals, and things of that sort. We don't have a lot of community centers. We don't have a lot of things, I guess, in my opinion anyways, for people who right? I graduated 4 years from college. Mm-hmm. Now, where do I take this education, right? Does that help or hurt our community when people like that? We bring people in and then we let them get degrees, they graduate, and then they take that and go other places, start lives, families, and then come here and retire?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, a lot of this comes from being on the brink of one of the fastest growing cities in America for a 10-year period during the rubber boom, to the industry leaving and messing up a lot of things locally, job opportunities, social life, and then the gentrification and the different projects that have wiped out some of our neighborhoods and disinvested in a lot of our neighborhoods since. But yeah, I think Akron shouldn't be a short-term experience. Yeah. I would like to be here for as long as I can be here and feel good about being here, right? Right. Yeah. I also, I had the possibility and, I took it to leave when I could, to go to school and get an education. But I also came back, and so I have a mixed relationship with this city, but I hope that we can just do more. It's not just about jobs. It's also making sure the community center thing. Yeah. Man. I would love to have more places to hang out and just be with people. Yeah. My neighborhood, we're really lucky. We just, LeBron's come back and invested in my neighborhood and put House 330 right at the heart of my neighborhood. Beautiful. I was just there today hanging out. But it's that kind of wonderful investment in places for people to just gather and be together and drink a coffee or eat a meal or
just
host an event.
Casual conversation.
Absolutely. I think we're missing that community connection so much in so many parts of Akron, and just investing in those spaces is so important. Yeah, there's always been a tension between development and preservation. Mm-hmm. So how would you balance that in Ward 1? Yeah, I think first is being really real about the impact of the development, right? Mm-hmm. So 3 development projects come in mind when we're talking about development. One is Tice Woods, which was slated to be a luxury housing development on the border of our national park that was supposed to be slated to down a bunch of trees and down a major green space in Ward 1 and Ward 8. Okay, I know. Okay, yeah. Right? Yep. Yeah, down in the Merriman Valley. Yeah. And neighbors were so angry. They were able to successfully organize to cut that legislation off. So that didn't happen. Thank God. So that is now a beautiful green space and continues to be so.
Great.
Another one is White Pond in Ward 4 and Ward 8 off White Pond Avenue, and historic wetland property that's been abused and misused by the city as a dumping ground.
Yeah, and everything.
Yeah, and they were going to turn it. The property has been healing itself, like a lot of nature coming in, trees growing,
all grass back.
Yeah. It was healing itself from decades of misuse, and then the city sold it for a tenth of the price to a luxury housing developer from out of state.
Right.
To build housing, and now it's housing that is like $1,600 or $2,100 in rent, just something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Another one is Middlebury. The SUMA tried to do a development in Middlebury, right across the bridge on East Market Street, right across from the YMCA there.
Yep.
And the rent over there, a lot of people are paying like $400, $500 a month for their houses. It's a place that a lot of slumlords are not being held accountable to. A lot of people are living in some pretty dire situations,
right?
Just trying to make ends meet, and
just to have a place to live, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they were going to put in a yoga studio, a luxury housing unit for nurses and doctors, and then they were going to put in some like gourmet kitchen.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, this is a problem.
It's not going to serve the community.
Yeah, that's not looking at who lives in that area and going, this is going to be affordable, or this is going to be a help for everybody, or this is going to be a true, experience for everybody in the neighborhood. And
that's good. Yeah.
I think, I've been a part of each one of those in different instances, but I think the main part of why I'm running for on this particular topic is that we need to be honest about the money impacts of these moves that we make. Yeah. And just let people know what's going on. But sorry to ramble a little bit. I'm very passionate about this.
That's a good thing. If you were elected, what one thing would you do that immediately anyways to help make things more transparent and easier, hopefully, for community to come together, have these conversations and such? Absolutely.
So for those of you who don't know, your ward in Akron has a ward meeting every month. Every ward has a ward meeting.
Right.
And you can go to akroncitycouncil.org to find out when your ward meeting is. And I would encourage people to go and meet their local legislator. But I would say, apart from holding ward meetings and being accessible and making that a better and more interactive experience for neighbors, I would also say, my team has been, since we last ran in 2023 for Akron City Council at large, we've been putting out a weekly newsletter about what happens at City Hall and what's happening in the news, to let neighbors know, what's going on? What's going on? How can you get involved? So we've been putting that out for 3 years, and you can subscribe at votefran.com to that newsletter. But I think just letting neighbors know what is happening and letting them know you can get involved by this way. You can show up in this way. You can let your voice be heard.
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier.
Basic steps that I think every city councilor should work on, but not enough are.
Yeah. Excuse me. How does your inclusive leadership actually look like in Akron, beyond just checking boxes? So, what do you think makes you when it comes to running in this ward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm an organizer. I'm also, very rooted in my community. I'm very active in what's going on in my neighborhood, what's going on in my area, and I would like to bring that sort of energy to City Hall. We should have local representatives that are showing up to community meetings that know what's going on in a lot of parts of the neighborhood. People should know what's going on. But I also say Akron's a lot zestier and sexier and interesting than what is represented right now.
Most definitely.
We have so much character, so much creativity, so much to offer. And I think who represents us is just one important factor in how we elevate what's going on here.
Definitely.
And, I would love to see more energy at City Hall, more big goals at City Hall, more spice.
Right. Yeah.
People who are showing up and are interested and deeply invested and who cares. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that. And that's what I hope to offer.
Are there any creative models like tiny home villages or anything like that you're interested in trying to maybe get implemented if you become the council person for your ward?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, we were talking about homelessness a while ago.
Right.
And while this might be a controversial idea, I think it's something that the city needs to explore, having some sort of sanctioned encampment. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the city is not funding, the county's not funding, the federal government and state are not funding enough shelter beds. We do not have enough places for people to rest their head at night.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to be real about the fact that there will be homeless encampments until we truly invest in these people. Mm-hmm. And maybe the best and safest way to do it is to have a sanctioned area with community support services, and 24-hour help if they need it, medical services, right. Somewhere that people can feel safe, and taken care of, and if they want to, and if they're able to, transition into housing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do after school program, pretty much teaching kids how to make T-shirts, stuff like that, at a school that's nearby the downtown area. Mm-hmm. I pay attention, like we take the kids out and they, get to run around and do their thing or whatever. And like under our bridges and underpasses and stuff, it's just tons of people who outside living and stuff like that. Do you think having things like maybe an urgent care near the Haven or more community resources, urban leagues and things of that sort would help with those encampments? Yeah,
I think so. I think we do have an abundance of resources here in this county. We have a lot of money. Right. We have a lot of resources. Some of it is just not accessible. Some of it's a long way away or, serving certain populations or have certain restrictions for who they serve and who they don't serve.
Right.
Some of it's understandable. Some of it isn't. I think at the end of the day, we need to be real about whether we want people to be living outside,
right,
or whether we are serious about ending homelessness. It's not just, a hashtag or some big goal that is put in an annual report. If we are actually serious about people not living on the street. And if we are, then I think we need to be looking at some of those things, where resources are, where health services are, where our community centers are. Shelters, oftentimes, you mentioned the Haven, and I think people look at the Haven as the first stop, and sometimes it is for some folks outside, but they are also very restrictive for who they let in.
Yeah, and the times and
and they're not welcoming to the queer community, not welcoming at all. And there's been a lot of instances of violence and of bad situations.
Yeah. I've read articles of murder and things of that sort that happen.
Yeah. So I think if we're serious about it, then we need to stop banning and criminalizing homelessness here, and be serious about where we're putting our dollars and our time.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I have a billion questions I probably could ask. We ran through a few of them, so I am grateful for you coming out. Without people like you, there is no us. So thank you for that. Yeah. Is there anything that you need to get off your chest or you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in our country, and there always has been.
Right.
But this is a crazy time.
Really, yeah.
It is a crazy time. And I understand that also, a lot of people don't go out to vote. I understand why that happens. And I feel very similarly about the state of our systems and what it does to people. Mm-hmm. But I would say that on the local level, oh my gosh,
important.
we have so much power on the local level. These are our neighbors. They are a couple neighborhoods over, or they are on our block. These are people who represent us. So there's a lot of power in voting locally. If you don't vote for anything else, you should vote locally. You should understand who represents you on the local level. These are people who are deciding where your taxpayer dollars are going in your community. And we need to be paying more attention because some of these people are not paying enough attention. And it's hurting us. Yeah. It's hurting us collectively. So I would say that. And I would say this is just one tactic. You know, running for office is just one tactic towards getting what we need out of our government, out of the state of economics right now. But show up in whatever way you can. But, you know, our campaign has over 330 donors, all grassroots, Ohio local donors. We have a team of 7 to 10 people knocking just about every day of the week to try to win this seat.
Everybody's been out pretty heavy this week too.
Yeah, we're very serious about winning this. It's really important for people to get engaged, and we want to turn non-traditional voters and people who don't make it out to the polls a lot out in this race, because this does affect them. And when in office, I'm going to fight like hell for our people. Definitely,
man. How can anybody get in contact with you, reach out to you, even canvass or support your cause?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run an Instagram page, Fran for the People, also on Facebook. And then our website, which you can learn more about our endorsements, read our full policy page. It's pretty robust. And, sign up to volunteer at votefran.com.
Yeah, definitely, man. Again, thank you for coming out, giving me some of your time, man. We look forward to seeing you in office, doing your thing. Maybe this is a small step for bigger things in the future. Ward 1 now, mayor.
Oh, God, no. No.
10, 15 years from now?
That sounds terrible.
Get a little
I'm just trying to do my stuff right now, help my community pass the torch.
Yeah, thank you, man. Well, again, thanks again for coming out, man. Without you, there is no us, and I appreciate you.
You too.
Thank you.